Alright, so this is 1.5 currency exchange. So it's going to be similar to the other stuff that we did at the beginning of the chapter with cross multiplication. Um, we're going to have to talk about exchange rates. You can see that's right there. So like when you go travel from country to country, like from the US to Canada, you have to exchange your money for the currency that that country uses. So like in Canada we have the Canadian dollar, and in the United States they have the American dollar. In England they have the pound. In Europe they have the euro, and all different countries have all different types of currencies. And there's a global marketplace that determines the currencies, and for us in this course all we're really going to be worried about is converting money. So if you take a look at the first example, you can see that they have it right here. 1 Canadian dollar is worth, looks like 94 cents of an American dollar. So 1 Canadian is worth basically 94 cents of an American dollar. Okay. So how I would solve this problem is I would translate this directly like this. 1 Canadian dollar is equal to 0.94192 US dollars. So what this means basically, if I exchange a loonie or a $1 bill, if I exchange $1, I'm going to get back 94 cents. So I'm always going to have less American than Canadian if I use this conversion. They want us to convert 500 Canadian, so put the 500 on this side. So it's to line up the Canadian. See how if you write the units, it's lined up? Okay. So then on this side, we'll solve for X in US dollars. And when we cross multiply, always times the two numbers, divide the thing across X. So basically it's just 500 times the 0.94. And it should come out to less than 500. So 470.96, and this is US dollars. Alright, so let's try build your skills. This, just what you want to do is like scan the question and look for the exchange rate. The exchange rate is 1 Canadian to 180 Hungarian, whatever that word is. And then, so basically this thing that's highlighted in blue, 1 Canadian dollar, so 1 Canadian dollar equal to 180.0779 FT. They want you to convert 500 Canadian, so line that up over here. This will be XFT. Cross multiply. Looks like 180.0779 times 500. So you'd be rich in Hungary. This is 90,038.95 FT. Next one is to the pound, the British pound. So you can see that when you exchange $1, you only get like 59 cents back. So this is not a good exchange rate. 1 Canadian is worth 0.5911 pound. And then how many pounds would you get for 200 Canadian? So put the Canadian on that side. This would be X pounds. So 200 times 0.5911. You'd only get 118.22 pounds off of 200 bucks Canadian. Madeline is attending a trade show to Denmark. She runs short of spending money and must convert 100 into the Danish kroner. The exchange rate is 5.3541 kroner for $1. So that's from that sentence. 5.35 kroner for 1 Canadian dollar. How many kroner would she receive for 100 Canadian? So very similar. Cross multiply 5.3541 times 100. $535.41 kroner. Alright, so hopefully you sort of recognize this skill as cross multiplication. The important part is just the exchange rate setup. Okay, so number one, you're going to want to do the exchange rate setup. So you always have to grab that from the question. Like, look at this. 5.35 kroner for 1 Canadian, and then that's what I write here. And then basically they'll ask you to solve for one, and they'll give the other, and keep the units lined up. You can see Canadian lined up, kroner lined up, cross multiply, and you should be able to get your answer. Alright, so these look almost identical, so let's see how we do these. The exchange rate for converting a Canadian dollar, so that's 1 Canadian dollar, to the euro is 0.7180 euro. How many euros would you get for 300 Canadian? So cross multiplication, 300 times 0.718, you'll get 215 euro. I don't know the symbol for euro. Exchange rate for Canadian dollar to the Swiss franc, 1.0542. How many Swiss francs would you get for 400 Canadian? So like, once you start getting good at this, you realize like, if 1 is worth this much, then 400 would be worth just 400 times the exchange rate. So if you know how much for 1, then you just multiply how much you have by the exchange rate, and this is 421.68. And it makes sense because if you trade in $1, they give you back like $1.05. So you're always gaining. So that's why you end up with more money than what you started with in the other unit of money. This is the Swiss franc. Alright, next one. Let's just skim the question. Exchange rate, that's what we're looking for. Canadian to Trinidad, 6.18. How many Trinidad dollars would you get for 200 Canadian? So basically just times those two. Exactly like the questions above. You'd end up with 1236.10, whatever the Trinidad and Tobago money is called. Alright. So this question, using the following exchange rates, calculate how much foreign currency you would receive for 200 Canadian. So these are perfect. Like it says 1 is equal to this, so how much would 200 be? Okay, so in all these questions you just take this exchange rate and times by 200. So you'll get each answer. Okay, so that's super easy. Calculate the value in Canadian dollars of an item that costs 449 Singapore dollars. Assume the exchange rate for 1 Canadian dollar. Okay, so again, this one looks a bit harder, so if we don't know what to do, let's try cross multiply. Any money question, typically you're gonna, if you don't know what to do, set up a cross multiplication. So 1 Canadian dollar is the 0.75529. I'll put S for Singapore dollar. Now what did they give us? This costs 449 Singapore dollars, so I got to put that over here, and then you solve for X Canadian. So when you cross multiply, this one actually ends up being a divide. Like the question above, all of them, you just took your money that you have and times it by the exchange rate, so it's just a times. Well, in this question, because of the way that they set it up and the way that they gave you information, it's actually going to be a divide. You divide by the exchange rate because you have the other currency. So how do you know that? Well, look at the cross multiplication. You always divide the thing across x. So times those two and then divide the thing across x. So 449.75 times 1, still 449.75. Divide by 0.75529 and you get 595.47 after rounding Canadian dollars. All right. Keep going here. Henry returns home, blah blah blah. On his travels, he purchases a jacket. So you have some dollar amount there. Calculate the value of Henry's jacket in Canadian. Assume that, okay, here it is, a euro, so 1 euro is worth, okay, so 1.3987 Canadian. They gave us a value in euro, so put that over here. I always include the units, it helps with cross multiplication so much. Alright, so in order to solve this one, always times the two things and divide the thing across x. So I just need to times the 125.98 by the exchange rate. So 176.21 Canadian dollars. Alright, so this one's really nice. It tells you exactly what to write. 1 rand is equal to 0.138469 CAD. What is the CAD? Item pros 639 rand. So line up the R's, X CAD, basically just cross multiply. So 639 times 0.138469. So $88. And after no rounding, 48 cents. All right. All right. This next question involves the bank selling rate and the buying rate. So these are a little bit different. Alright, so the bank selling rate, this is what the bank will sell the currency to you, okay, and then this is the rate that they'll buy it from you. Okay, so you can notice they want to buy it from you at a cheaper rate than what they give it to you. So you have to pay an extra 3 cents difference. Okay, because the bank is trying to make money off of you, basically. Alright, so let's try some of these questions here. So it says if the exchange rate of a country compared to the Canadian dollar is here, will you get more or less of their currency units when you exchange the money? So this is not a very good question because this is such a small number. Like, if you trade in $1, you don't even get a penny. So I don't really like this question, but you will get less. Like, think about the exchange rate. If the exchange rate is greater than 1, you'll get more money. If the exchange rate is less than 1, you'll get less money. Just think about this. Like, if you're giving them $1 Canadian and the exchange rate is 0.5 or the exchange rate is 1.5, okay, if I give you $1, you give me back 50 cents, or if I give you $1, you give me back $1.50. So it's all about being bigger than 1 or smaller than 1. If you're bigger than 1, you get more money. If you're smaller than 1, you get less money. So Diane works as a bank teller. Customer wishes to buy 250 British pounds at a rate of 1.5379 Canadian. How many Canadian dollars would the British pounds cost? So this bank teller is going to sell the pounds to this person. So this is a selling rate. 1.5379 Canadian. So you got to give $1.53 basically. 1.5379. Whoops. Okay, sorry, 1.5379. You got to give this much Canadian in order to get 1 British pound. And you're trying to get 250 British pounds. So how much Canadian would you have to pay? So 250 times 1.5379, you'd have to pay $384, and after rounding, 48 cents Canadian. Alright, so we got selling rate, buying rate. How much would you lose if you exchanged 1,000 for euros and then converted them back to Canadians in the same moment? Not the same day, the same moment, because actually the exchange rates change every second. So say the exchange rate is fixed for about a minute here, and then you would buy the euro and then sell it back to the bank. Okay, so you got to be careful here. So here you are, you're the customer, here's the bank. Okay, so first they're going to sell it to you. So that's the selling rate. And then you're going to give it back to them. That's the buying rate. So they sell it to you, then they buy it back from you. Okay? So the selling rate. Alright, so the selling rate. In order for you to get 1 euro, see how it says a euro? You would have to put up $1.47 Canadian. So $1.47 Canadian would get you 1 euro. And there's the symbol for a euro. You have $1,000, so 1,000 Canadian dollars. And then you'd figure out X euro like this. So this one's different than what we've normally seen, where you always just times the dollars by the rate. In this case, just by looking at the cross multiplication, you're going to have to end up dividing. So 1 times 1,000 does nothing. Divided by the thing across X, 1.4768. So $1,000 divided by 1.4768 is 677.14 after rounding. So here's, oops, it's not dollars, my bad. This is euros. So you have 677 euros. Okay, and now the bank's gonna buy them back to you, from you, at that different rate. So now, okay, so now you're doing the buying rates. So it says the buying rate is 1.4287. So they would spend $1.42 Canadian to get 1 euro off of you. You have $677 or euros to give back, and then this is how much Canadian you'll get back for your 677 euros. So after timesing this, you get 967.43 Canadian dollars. And you started with 1,000. So how much do you lose? How much do you lose? Well, just put 1,000 here, subtract. So 1,000 subtracting this 967.43 looks like you would lose 32 bucks 57 cents Canadian to convert like that. And that 30 bucks, that's just how the banks make their money off of currency conversions. So it's a nice little way for the banks to make money. Alright, so here's your practice your skills. Most of these are pretty straightforward, where you just have to multiply the dollars by the exchange rate. But sometimes they're a bit harder when they tell you, like, buying price and selling price. Okay, so like this, selling rate. So these are a bit harder. So work on that, and then this is your chapter test review at the end of the chapter, and you're done chapter 1.